Good evening, I'm Jose Cardenas. Tonight we celebrate the past 10 years of Horizonte, from the debate on immigration reform and SB 1070 in Arizona to bringing you analysis of politics in our state and covering the sights and sounds of Latino arts and culture in the Valley. Join us as we look back on the past 10 years, coming up next on Horizonte.
Funding for Horizonte is made possible by contributions by the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station.
Thank you for joining us. Welcome to Horizonte's 10th anniversary special. Horizonte made its television debut here on 8 10 years ago. The show has provided a forum for presenting important issues and stories through an Hispanic lens. One of those issues is immigration reform, where the show created conversation and at times ignited strong opinions from both sides. Here's a look at some past shows that focused on this issue.
Senator, I really suggest you reread this. This subverts completely the Constitution
in
two ways. In two ways. That's one way it does it, by simply stating you can on the basis of reasonable suspicion, because the crime is the status of a person.
Reasonable suspicion is what we operate under today.
If there is a crime.
Right.
The crime today is an act.
It says in the bill that you can't go after
here.
The immigration is not the primary crime.
But it says in the bill that for harboring, Senator, not necessarily.
When I read it, it said that it was
you need to reread the bill, Senator. But let me go to the other point.
I don't think so, but
let me go to the other point.
You're entitled to your opinion.
Let me answer his question. So what you're saying is that you're saying that if there's a cost associated with dealing with illegal immigration in this country, that we can't afford that, and we shouldn't do that. Therefore, we're not going to enforce that law. Is that what you're telling me, Jake?
What I'm telling
it's not
you
worth
is,
enforcing the law.
Money
so which other laws don't you want to enforce?
Randy,
which other laws don't you want to enforce?
Now, you had
Let's
your turn.
spend that money incarcerating violent criminals. Not the person standing on the corner whose only crime is being here without the proper paperwork.
They are here just to make this country even better than what it is.
What you heard this morning was very
shocking. I mean, I've been all over the country promoting my book and doing reports, and I have not seen in any other state the kind of venom and prejudice that I've heard here in Arizona. I'm sorry to say that.
Here with me tonight are Lisa Urias, co-chair for the Real Arizona Coalition and president of Urias Communications. Also here is Danny Ortega, a Valley attorney and past chairman for the National Council of La Raza. Both of you have been on the show many times over the past 10 years. I'm delighted that you could join us for this anniversary special. Let me start with the very last clip, Jorge Ramos. Danny, was his opinion of Arizona valid at the time he gave it, which is about 5 years ago? And is it true today about the level of anti-immigrant prejudice?
Well, first of all, I think Jorge was correct at the time when he said it. Clearly, my position is that there's more venom in the state when the legislature is in session, because they fan that animosity, they fan that terrible hate that he's talking about. But we also do have to give credit to the last two legislative sessions in which there have been tremendous victories at pushing back on these anti-immigration bills. So the bottom line here is that things have gotten better. I don't know that they're going to stay the way they are now, but our hope is that it will.
And Danny, though, how much of that change in sentiment is simply a result of the last presidential election, where the Democrats did very well at the presidential level, and the Republicans seem to realize if they're going to win Hispanic votes, they've got to moderate their positions on immigration?
Well, I think it had something to do with it, Jose, but I think what happened is that we had some moderate Republicans who were finally able to convince their party that they represented their interest also, and did it in a more reasonable way. So I think it was a combination of both. The Republicans not necessarily reaching out to Hispanics, but Republicans reaching out to moderates within their own districts that allowed them to do the things they did to block the kind of legislation that had the venom that Jorge has been talking about.
Lisa, the kind of exchanges that we saw between Alfredo Gutierrez and Senator Gould, and then you had Randy Pullen and Jake Jacobson, that was pretty typical for much of the last 7-8 years. You've been involved, as has Danny, with the Real Arizona Coalition, a relatively recent effort to try and heal those divisions. Could you have started earlier, and do you think you would have even been heard?
Well, you know, In the very beginning, I remember with some of the major elections, including the governor's race, when Terry Goddard and Governor Brewer were running at the time, I had written a piece about how really we saw this as a political three-card Monte. It was sort of an unprincipled trick that politicians were using to sort of take our eye off the ball of the real issues that we were confronting. There are a lot of significant issues in Arizona that we were confronting during the recession, like economics and the economic development that we needed in this state. We had education issues and healthcare issues, which we still have. But you know, using the immigration issue as the main issue to address was really kind of an unprincipled trick by a lot of politicians in this state. So I think we could have maybe started earlier, but I think we did step up. A lot of the business community did step up to force the state legislature to stop the kind of bills that they had been enacting, and to work with our senators and others at the federal level to say, you need to enact federal immigration reform because we've got to resolve these issues.
Danny, more than once on the show when we've talked about these issues, you and other guests have indicated that we'll look back on this period in Arizona's history as one of the most shameful periods in the history of the state. What's the long-term impact of this?
Well, the long-term impact can be both good and bad, Jose. The bad is the kind of venom and hate that permeated politics in the state and the division that it created between our communities. The good part is the activism that grew out of it, particularly in our community. We've never seen in the history of Arizona the kinds of increases in voter registration, the kinds of political participation, civic participation that came out of fighting back. And so, you know, I've always joked that probably the best two organizers we've ever had in the Latino community were Sheriff Joe Arpaio and Senator Russell Pierce, because they finally were able to convince our community that they needed to get up, to register to vote, to take an active part in the political process to fight back, that was the only way that we were going to beat it back. And so on the one part, the division of a community wasn't good. On the other, talking to a community to say, are you going to let this happen? And they got up and said no. So I think both of them had a lot to do with it.
Lisa, we're almost out of time, literally just about 30 seconds. If federal immigration reform fails this time, do we revert back to what we were?
Well, I don't know. I think it's going to pass. Whether it passes this session or not, it will pass eventually, principally because of the activism.
So you're optimistic about the future?
I absolutely am.
Well, we'll have you both on the show, I'm sure, again, to talk about this as we go into our next 10 years. But thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Horizonte got started with a call from one of the top administrators at ASU, Virgil Renzulli, and he wanted us to do a show about and for the Hispanic community, talking about Hispanic issues. So at that point we got set into motion, and the first thing we did is we got together a committee of Channel 8 people, and then also a committee of people from the community, the Hispanic community.
I watch Horizonte because I see people that I wouldn't see anyplace else. When I see people who come on who are educators from our community, when I see people who are politicians from our community, you won't see them on the major networks. You might see them once in a blue moon, but you won't see them on a basis such as Jose brings people forward.
The topic that I am most appreciative of is the focus that Horizonte has spent on immigration. It's a topic that I think is one of the most significant civil rights issues of our generation, and Horizonte has spent a great deal of time on a topic that usually invites people to lose themselves in emotion and sometimes fear.
People watch Horizonte because of the depth of coverage that it provides. Not only does it start with Jose Cardenas and his credibility in our community, but also the fact that people come to hear the facts and not the emotion about the various topics that are being covered. For its many years of service and many years of being in the air, there's always been topics that are high impact and high visibility, as well as those issues that many times are not covered in many other stations.
Arizona's political landscape has changed over the past 10 years. Just take a look at some of the issues we've covered. The recall election against Senator Russell Pierce, former Mesa Police Chief George Gascon criticizing the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, and the Ethnic Studies Bill becoming law.
This election is a complete farce, organized by outside forces, paid for by outside forces.
What basis do you have for that? I mean, the numbers that came out in the Republic just this last week in terms of filings indicate that Lewis's support is mostly Mesa and Pierce has substantial outside support, exactly the opposite of what you just said.
But the initiation of this whole movement in the first place, where did it come from? Why did they not try to win in a prior election when it actually mattered? Where's the actual need for this recall? This is unprecedented.
Well, I take issue with that because you are probably the problem that we have. 10,300 Mesa residents and voters in District 18 are the ones who signed the recall petition.
I mean, there are horror story upon horror stories about malpractice in policing within the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, and yet, he continues to get a pass. And you have people that genuinely believe that he's the only one doing anything about crime. How they reach that conclusion is really something that I have no way of explaining.
One of their basic textbooks is called The Pedagogy of the Oppressed. These kids' parents and grandparents came to this country, most of them legally, because this is the land of opportunity. And these kids should be taught this is the land of opportunity, and if they work hard, they can achieve whatever they want. They should not be taught that they're oppressed, and they should be angry at the country that has become their country.
I know Representative Sinema had something she wanted to say.
And I teach a college course, and I use that very textbook, Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paulo Freire. It's an amazing textbook, and I think perhaps if you read it, you would feel differently about it.
I did read it. He's a well-known Brazilian communist.
He's not a communist at all.
Yes, he is. The sources are Marx, Lenin, Engels, Che Guevara, and the philosophers who influenced them.
Here with me tonight is Bettina Nava, partner at First Strategic Communications, a public affairs firm. Also here is John Loredo, Democratic political consultant and former Arizona lawmaker. John, since you were in the legislature, is the statement we made at the beginning of the segment that the political landscape has changed true on a long-term basis, or is it just a lull? I mean, Tom Horn is still an elected official. Senator Pierce got booted out, but you got movements now against the moderate Republicans. They may not last the next election. George Gascon has gone, in part because he wasn't getting the support he thought he needed here.
Sure. Well, I think you're always going to have politicians who use race-based politics for their own benefit and their own advantage. Because they're going to get their face on TV and because it's just easy for them to rile up their small bases. But what has changed is the Latino community. They have become more empowered. As a result of these attacks, they have organized and they fought back. And at the end of the day, they've been successful in playing a major part in recalling Russell Pierce, pushing back against Arpaio, and they have become a player in competitive districts as well. And so the backlash, I think, is what we're seeing now, and that backlash is not going to go away. It is only going to get worse and worse for those that target the Latino community for their own political self-interest.
Bettina, are you as confident in that prediction that John just gave?
I don't know about backlash. I think a lot of it is yet, the potential of the Latino community is yet to be realized, because if you look at the Arizona population, under the age of 18, 45% of it is Latinos. And so our kids are just growing up right now. So really how that's going to be realized, do I think it's going to be politically powerful? Absolutely. The pendulum is swinging, and we need to be aware of the haboob that's coming in with a Latino voter and pay attention to it.
Now, that's a word you're not supposed to use, at least according to some of the people on the far right. And I'm referring to haboob. Well, do you think that what we're seeing right now, it's reflected principally in this movement against moderate Republicans who voted for the governor's support for Obamacare, so to speak. Doesn't that signal, though, that we're going to end up with a much more conservative legislature next election?
No, not necessarily. I mean, when you think about it, to a certain degree, some of the response may be to demographic shifts, but a lot of it, I think, is economic messages that we're finally getting smarter about. People, how do they vote? For better or for worse with their pocketbooks. And so we've been better about whether it's Medicaid expansion, Medicare expansion, and or the Latino vote is really talking in terms of business related. You saw the chamber really stepping up with candidates. So I don't think it's indicative that we're going to have a more conservative legislature at all.
John, what about that? I mean, it does seem like people have been targeted and they may well be swept out of office because they're moderate Republicans.
That happens, but the real issue here are how the districts are comprised. I mean, now with the redistricting that just went through, there are more competitive districts, and in those competitive districts, we're seeing much more moderate people be elected. whether they be on the Democratic side or the Republican side. And so, we've known for a long time that when, people have to actually compete to get elected, you wind up with more moderate people. Those people who are the most extreme are also the safest, and they're in those districts for a reason. So I think the more the demographics change, the more the electorate becomes more of a persuasion type of an electorate where you can get either side elected. It will push people more towards the middle. And with a growing organic Latino vote in Arizona, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. I mean, it is inevitable that this state will become more moderate and eventually become more Democrat.
Bettina, last question. You're one of those moderate Republicans. You also give political advice. What would you tell your Republican colleagues they have to do if they want to remain relevant in Arizona politics?
I think we need to listen to the demographic shifts, do what's right. I think we need to really look at getting back to our roots of being less of a social conservative party and really looking at allowing people to live the American dream, whether it's owning a small business and getting government out of the way and figuring out a system by which people can make a living and feed their families. And I think if we do that, that's the attractive message. That's the party of Lincoln. And I think if we do that, it's going to be far more attractive than maybe a few people that have been the squeaky wheels. They don't represent some of these people that you showed nothing controversial tonight. Really don't represent, I think, a lot of it. It's about who we're getting out to vote. And right now, who's getting out to vote? Older people over the age of 65.
Well, I'm getting close to that, so I'm a little sensitive on that issue. But Bettina, John, thanks for joining us. Lucid opinions, as you've always given us over the past 10 years. Thank you so much. We'll see you again, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Horizonte is very varied. It provides many opportunities. On one occasion, it can talk about political issues and have people who know the Latino perspective on those issues, or it talks about cultural events that are only known in the Hispanic community, but the public should know about them, or it brings in some of the problems that we find in our community and exposes them to the general public. So Horizonte is there as an advocate and also as an informer, not only to the Hispanic community, but to the community at large.
Horizonte has been a very powerful tool for not only myself, but for others. I've often recommended Horizonte to other up-and-coming young leaders. We have so many, the dreamers, kids that are coming out of high school, and I've always recommended Horizonte. If you want to know what's happening in Arizona, if you want to know what's happening in this state, watch Horizonte. Be well informed.
I know Jose Cardenas very well as a professional and as a friend, and he once told me that the great value of Horizonte is that it invites Latinos from all walks of life to come and give their different opinions and important information. He said, Latinos are stereotyped too often. I believe that Horizonte truly reflects the diversity of who we are as Latinos. And he's right.
The people watching Horizonte are folks who are making decisions, folks who are leaders in the arts, leaders in politics, leaders in business. And so it's a program influential way beyond the size of its audience.
Sounds of Cultura SOC is a segment where national and local Latino artists are featured. In the past, we've interviewed Edward James Olmos and Chicha Marin.
Beginning, I mean, and Elvis came out around 55, 56, and this music was just, I mean, going from listening to Pat Boone and you know, that kind of Lawrence Welk kind of music, and you know, very orchestrated kind of love and marriage, love and, you know, that kind of music, to, you know, you can shake, rattle, and roll. I said shake. Everybody was, you know, went nuts, and the kids loved it. The adults hated it, and it was noise to them. But the kids found the rhythm, and pretty soon it was infectious, very infectious.
We've talked about the Mexican influences on Chicano art, What about the influence of the Mexican muralists in particular?
Well, there's certain groups especially, but most of the painters came out of that a tradition of the muralists, Siqueiros, Orozco, Rivera, and it was a social form of art. Largely for literate audiences in Mexico, the mural stood in for political awareness.
Here now with me to talk about arts and culture is artist Sarko Guerrero, himself a frequent subject of our SOC segments. Sarko, good to have you back on the show.
Thank you for having me.
This segment has always been my favorite for a whole bunch of reasons. I mean, I like right-brained people, and because I'm not one myself. But what do you view as the significance of this segment? You yourself, as we mentioned, have been on many, many times.
Well, it's interesting to me to have such people as Eddie Olmos and Chich Marin on the show, because they become icons not only within our community, the Chicano community, but on a national scale. They represent who we are. People look at them as Chicanos, not as Hispanics, not as Latinos. Chicano is a term that they evoke constantly and use to describe who they are and who we are as a people and a culture. And I think that's what really makes it important for me, is the terminology that we used. Without them, the term Chicano, I think, would be totally lost in the scope of things today.
So I think you're undervaluing and underestimating your own impact here, because you've been on the scene locally and nationally for many, many years. And one of the things that I remember most about one of our segments was your report on your trip to China and the similarity in cultural traditions there and with Chicano culture here.
Well, that's true. People could see the term Chicano as being something that limits us within a certain scope and a certain way of seeing the world. But to me and many other artists, I think, of my generation, we feel that the term Chicano is a term of liberation that opens us up to other cultures, other ideas, other philosophies. And I think that's the kind of thing that the arts need to do. I think it's very important that we define who we are, but by defining who we are, it opens up new doors, new windows of opportunity, and new ways to see the world.
Now, the last 10 years have been very difficult for everybody, but the arts in particular, budgets have been slashed, and people have suffered because of it. What do you think has been the impact, and what's the future of the arts in Arizona?
Well, people dismiss Arizona as being a cultural wasteland because of the political environment that we've been in for the last 5 to 10 years. We're ground zero for the immigration debate. But they forget the fact that not only are we ground zero for the immigration debate, but also the fact that we're ground zero for positive social change. We got together, we mobilized, and we recalled Russell Pierce. That was a historic event. And I think the arts played a big part in keeping people motivated, keeping people inspired, and keeping people in midst of this struggle in a celebratory mood. And I think it's created unity amongst us, despite the terms we use to describe ourselves. During the marches, during the campaigns, we came together across party lines, across racial lines, and that was important. And I think we need to be given credit for that nationally.
And in many ways, it brings back memories of the role that the Royal Chicano Air Force played back in the farm workers movement, a group of artists who created silk screens and other pieces of original art to promote the cause of the farm workers.
Exactly. And that's what you saw going on here in Arizona. During the SB 1070 movement, you saw the birth, the resurgence of a new form of passion, of commitment to a social cause. You saw people come out of the shadows and march in the street, and I saw people who didn't ever consider themselves to be artists or artistic or creative, who were inspired by this social political movement that became a cultural movement as well.
We've only got about 30 seconds left. Sarko, what do you see coming along in the next 10 years?
Well, I see the fact that the world is changing every day. Just the whole Miss America pageant, I see Miss America, she's one of us. She's the face of America. The face of America is changing, and I think we're changing it not only in the visual arts, the performing arts, but it's happening in the media as well. The face of America is changing it, and we can't help but notice the difference.
Sarko Guerrero, a dear friend and a great artist, thank you for joining us on Horizonte. And thank you for inviting us into your homes for the last 10 years. Special thanks to all of those who have made Horizonte possible, the guests over the years, the directors, the student television crew, and everyone here at 8. And we hope you'll continue to watch Horizonte as we embark on our second decade. Now that's our show for tonight. I'm Jose Cardenas. Have a good evening.
Funding for Horizonte is made possible by contributions by the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station.